Whoo! Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Thursday, June the 20th, 2024. On the show tonight, Rebel News being investigated for hate speech by the hate speech unit of the Toronto Police Service. And Ezra Levant, of course, taking full advantage of the situation, has already released a video, which is interesting, entertaining, and absolutely pertinent. You know, there's an organization run by the Trudeau federal government that decides whether or not you're a news organization, and it's nothing to do with the CRTC or the Broadcast Standards Council. It has nothing to do with either one of those two bodies. It's just somebody that Trudeau created, and this allows this body to say, you're not a news organization. You're not allowed to cover debates. You're not allowed to cover Parliament Hill. You're not allowed to cover anything to do with this government. And we all know, because we've seen video of Trudeau's absolute and complete hatred for Rebel News and all of the people that work there. He doesn't call them a news or media organization. He calls them your group of people, which is completely unfair. They do cover news, and they do break a lot of news stories that we otherwise wouldn't see. They have 41 people working in their offices all across the country. They also make themselves the news a lot of times, and that's one of the things that I personally take issue with. As a news body, as a journalistic body, you're not supposed to make yourself the news. You were supposed to cover the news, but whatever. They do a good job 95% of the time, and so I'm not going to sit here and admonish or nitpick at Rebel News. In this case, they've become the news again, and I don't know if it's intentional. I mean, Ezra must have known that ad truck. I showed you a video of this last night. That ad truck driving through the most populous downtown, the most populous city in our country, in heavy rush hour traffic, was going to cause some second looks. And he knew people were going to record it on their phones, right? And so is it any surprise that the hate crimes unit of the Toronto Police paid a visit to Rebel News today? So we're going to show you that story. We're going to show you what the left-wing corporate media coverage of that was like as well. That's coming up. We also want to talk a little bit about the big event coming up this weekend in Beausejour, Manitoba, the Stronger Together conference hosted by Manitoba Stronger Together, Chris Erdell and Ken Drysdale, of course, and all of the fantastic guests we have coming out to join this weekend. I'm so happy to say I'm part of it. I'm going to be moderating the panels Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so hopefully we'll see you there. More information and all of your tickets, you can get that at Manitoba Stronger Together, all one word, manitobastrongertogether.ca. Yeah, so also Laurel Collins, she's an MP for the NDP. I think she's on Vancouver Island, and she's been releasing videos about climate catastrophe in the last few days. She got picked on by Lefties Losing It from Sky News Australia a couple of weeks ago, and she's released new videos as well. It's good, we're all gonna die. You know, it's gotten to the point where you have to think, all right, so exactly what am I voting for here when I vote for this particular party? And this is something that we can use in our favor when it comes to the next election and any election beyond that, provincial or federal. And in Alberta, municipal elections will now have parties. I think there's a new party already forming for municipal elections in Alberta. It's called the Better Calgary Party, with a little sun for a logo. I saw that yesterday. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, it's already happening, and hopefully it happens in other jurisdictions across the country. This would force NDP politicians who use municipal politics and school trustee elections, by-elections as well, as their farm teams, before they get these candidates ready for provincial and federal politics, would now have to say that they are affiliated with the NDP. Largely, people like Jody Gontak and all like Naheed Nenshi, we didn't know he was an NDP Who knew he was an NDP? Because municipal politicians don't have to disclose that information on their yard signs or in any of their advertising, but now they will if they are affiliated. And turns out that Nenshi is obviously a Marxist. He's running for the leadership of the Alberta NDP. So Calgary, for what was he mayor for there, 12 years? You had a Marxist running your city for 12 years, and now you've got another one. So I hope that this policy will also get us to pay more attention to our municipal politics, which is where it all starts. The mess we've gotten ourselves into is largely based upon our complete lack of interest in civic politics. Do you know on average, how many people come out and vote in a civic election in any city across the country? Take a guess in the comments. I'm going to wait 30 seconds before I answer that because it's remarkably low. It's much lower than provincial elections. It's much lower than federal elections. It's very, very low. And while I'm here, let's say hello to some folks who are watching tonight on Facebook or X or YouTube. We're back on YouTube tonight. I don't know exactly for how long because I have a story about the Attorney General of the state of Kansas in the United States filing a lawsuit against Pfizer for not disclosing the information they knew before they released the jabs. YouTube's not going to like that, and so I might get my second strike as early as tonight after just getting back on that platform after 7 days being in the penalty box there. Hello, Joanne, watching in Saskatchewan. Cheryl is watching tonight in Alberta. Hello, Wallace in Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan. Deb is watching in Calgary. Hello, Heather. Hello, Blair, watching in Sherwood Park, and Barb is watching in southern Manitoba. Mechanics. Hello. Gloria is watching in Winnipeg. Pauline's watching in Kelowna. Carla is watching in Calgary. You guys don't forget to like and share if you're watching on Facebook. It really helps get the show out. Facebook is doing everything they can to shadow ban my page and, of course, this show and every single post I make. So the more you guys like, the more you guys share, the more you guys engage without using the angry face, the orange angry face, because that actually downgrades a page. Don't use that. If you can. If you can, use the laughing emoji or the thumbs up emoji. That helps a page circulate. The angry face actually downgrades a page. And I've lost 100 followers somehow in the last week, which is insane to me on Facebook. I mean, I don't care personally, but it's obvious that they are shadow banning this page, even though in phone calls to Facebook in the last few days, I have actually reached out and spoken to representatives of Facebook. They claim they're not doing it. It's not a policy of ours at Meta, sir. We don't do that. Well, why all of a sudden? Well, maybe it's because of the content you post. Maybe it's not engaging enough. Maybe it's boring. But the content I've been posting for the last 3 years got me to 53,000 followers. And now all of a sudden, no more? That's it? We're done? And now we're starting to go down? Maybe you should try engaging more with your followers, sir. Anyway, I digress. Let's get it out there to as many people as we can. The same thing on X, you guys. It's a repost and a heart over there. Over on Rumble tonight. Who's watching? Amnesty, Mouth of the South, Little Farmer 2010's watching. Natasu, hello. Midnight Oil and Vilma. And who else? Tammy is here. Seems like a pretty small crowd on Rumble tonight. Patricia, Cheryl. I don't want to repeat names. Rita's watching. Uniaki's watching. World Peace is watching. Boogart, Wayne New. Hello, you guys. Let's get it out there as well. Within the 100 million strong Rumble community with a thumbs up, it really helps the engagement of this show on Rumble. And if you want to share this show on Rumble through another social media platform or email, you can hit the share button beneath the screen that highlights the URL above the screen. From there, you can copy and paste to your favorite location. The show is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. The Immune Gummies, my personal favorite product and the personal favorite product of a lot of young people as well. I'm talking about little kids who like gummy bears because that's exactly what these things taste like. Even though there's no additives, no sugar, none of that stuff, it tastes a lot like it. And kids, they'll eat this whole thing. They'll fight over it. And I think it's probably a tie between the Bubbleberry toothpaste and this product for the kids' favorite Canada Nano Silver product. So please keep it on a higher shelf so the kids can't get at it, and hide the ladders. Simplify your daily immune support with convenient and delicious Nano Silver Immune Gummies. Each serving contains powerful triple action Nano Silver elderberry, vitamin C, zinc, and vitamin D3. This helps to supercharge your immune system. Safe and proven Nano Silver works alongside your body's immune system to help you stay healthy and strong for everything that life throws at you. Get this and many of the other awesome products at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. That is CanadaNanoSilver.ca. I think Kevin and Anna are going to be coming out to Beausejour for the Stronger Together conference this weekend. Perhaps they'll bring some of their products along with them. If you want to buy the product on a retail location, there's many across the country. Just hit the retail locations tab to find out where. And if you would like to be a retailer of these awesome products, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. That is CanadaNanoSilver.ca. We do have some sad news to share tonight. This is going to be mostly for my Winnipeg, Southern Manitoba audience. A guy I used to work with at a radio station called 92 City FM years and years ago, Larry Updike, passed away today. He had a form of cancer. Now, I lost touch with Larry years and years ago. I mean, we worked together 91, 92, way back. I'd seen him around town a few times these last few years, but not very often. And especially during COVID, he and I held completely and totally opposite views on this. So I would assume that Larry probably was all jabbed up. He had cancer before the pandemic response started, and I can't make any claims of what happened to him, but what I do know is that he passed away early this morning. His family has my condolences, Gordon and Marianne. I have heard rumblings that it was a form of turbo cancer. I can't say it was caused by any kind of anything because I don't know. So I'm not going to make that observation. We can draw our own conclusions on that. Ultimately, Larry was a good guy, a funny guy, very smart, very intelligent man, and he's going to be missed. He did a lot of work in the community as well. And he was part of a very successful rock morning show in the late 80s, in the early 90s called Tom and Larry on a station called Power 97 and then on 92 City FM. So Larry Updike has passed away at the age of 69. Larry, the community will definitely miss you. Also, a lot of messages today. I asked a question about who somebody was because I hadn't heard this name before. And a friend of mine sent me a video this person had done, kind of dissing me, not really. And so I went, who is this guy? I've never heard of this guy before. I'm not going to name names here because I don't want to create any or sow any seeds of division. But it got me thinking, because when I put the question up, who is this guy, a lot of people responded, and the comments filled up pretty quickly, and there was a lot of divisiveness in there. And I thought to myself, wow, you know, why is there still so much division amongst our own people? Why is it that people always have to point fingers and say, grifter, 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 even after asking for money themselves? I don't understand this. What I did hear was a lot of apologists coming on and saying, well, you know, he's had a rough time. He's lost some family. He's lost everything because of this, that, and the other. And while I do have empathy for something like that, I do understand that many of us, the vast majority of us have lost things as well in our lives. There's relationships that will never heal because some awful things were said that can never be taken back or forgiven. And that's really no excuse to start lashing out at other people. So I'm just going to leave it there. But what I can say is that the division I felt, and I thought that was over with, you know, I thought that these groups, these smaller groups, these hateful groups, who still believe in truth and freedom, but don't like any of the other truth and freedom people because of this, that, and the other. I thought those groups had kind of spun off into their own little echo chambers and just vanished, really, from plain sight anyway. But when you ask a question like I asked today, they come right back out and start calling names and there's so much immaturity as well. And it reminded me of exactly how the Marxists handle their critics and anybody who wants to have a relatively harmless discussion in terms of, antagonism. I mean, harmless could mean many things, but I don't want to be antagonistic with people. And genuinely, I would love to have one of these Marxist types on the show. And people get upset. I say, Marxist. Why are you getting upset? That's what you are. You take that as an insult. That's not how I mean it most of the time. I mean that you follow the doctrine of Karl Marx. You're doing it socially. You're doing it financially. You're doing it in every which way. And you may or may not know that, but you are. Read his manifesto. It rings true in everything that is going on in society today, from government policy to the way people conduct themselves in public or on social media, online. So yeah, sure, you can take it as an insult, but I mean it as a descriptor. So if you, from the left, I'm not talking to you guys now, if you from the left take that as an insult, that's the first thing you're going to have to swallow, digest, and then have the conversation, because you are, in fact, that. You may call me far right. I disagree with that as well. I'm a centrist. I've always been, maybe a little bit right-leaning of center, if we had a normal political spectrum back, a normal Overton window, but we don't. It seems as though anything slightly right of Joseph Stalin for these people these days is extreme right. Anyhow, ultimately, what we need to do on our side of things is bring it all back together and take our emotions and stuff them in a bag and deal with this in an intellectual way. It is the only way we're going to get through this. I understand you're going to need time to vent. Do that on your own time, please. The discussions we're going to be having this weekend in Beausejour, and there's another event going on in Victoria this weekend for everybody in BC. These discussions are going to be important. They're going to be paving the way for our future here. And with all of these petty differences, have people forgotten what we are facing here? We're facing a Goliath, and they're all walking in lockstep. And instead of looking right at the monster, the train that's coming right at us, we're bickering with each other, going back and forth. He's a grifter. I mean, come on. I've been guilty of it in the past as well. Not a lot, but I have done it. And it comes out of frustration. I totally understand that. I get it. Most of the times when I do want to say something, I don't. Because what good is it going to do? Zero. By the way, this is not some sign that I'm flashing here, some demonic, satanic sign. This is just me saying zero. Zero. Okay? So don't make any, oh my God, Shadow! You're a Satanist! No. So we just need to stuff all of our bullshit aside, guys, and work together. It's the only way we're going to beat this thing. I believe when the time comes, we're gonna. But up until then, we've got to find a way. The petition I have been talking about all week, let's see how we're doing here in terms of signatures. Because remember the last one to have a non-confidence vote in the House of Commons. It went like wildfire. We had 30 days to sign that thing. And maybe that's why, because the sense of urgency was so great. Right now, not so big. This is the petition that was put out by Melissa Outwater and sponsored into the House of Commons by MP Michelle Ferrari on June the 4th. It closes October 2nd. That's probably why people haven't signed it yet. Maybe they don't know about it yet. Maybe the independent media, by and large, hasn't really talked about it yet. It's up to us, guys, to share this out there. Right? So I have shared this link over and over and over again. I'm going to do it again right now in comments so that you can go ahead and sign the thing first and then share it to 10 of your friends. It's very important we get this out there. And if you didn't see the show with Melissa Outwater the other night, I suggest you go back and watch it, because It was very informative, very uplifting, very positive. Ultimately, the goal here is what did she say? 2,075,000 signatures, or 2,575,000 signatures, something like that. It's crazy. It's high. Last time the petition got 387,000 signatures in 30 days. I think we can do this, but we're going to have to share this out. People are angrier than ever right now at the Trudeau government, and it has everything to do with his policies. His very presence. Every time he opens his mouth, I think millions of Canadians become angry, frustrated. Like, I know how it is when I play video of Trudeau on this show. I can guarantee you there's going to be at least 20 comments. Shadow, please take that off. Shadow, I can't take it. Shadow, I've turned it down. I'll be back when he's off the screen. It's just, right? I get it. I feel the same way, but we do have to listen to him because we need to know what their strategies are. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Enemies being the left-wing corporate media. Now, this is City News Toronto talking about the Rebel News advertising truck that was spotted and filmed driving around downtown Toronto yesterday with video of a bunch of Muslim men praying in the streets of Mississauga. And the question on the truck was, is this Syria? Is this Yemen? Is this Iraq? No, it's Canada. Wake up Canada, something like that. And apparently that message was bought and paid for on the Rebel News truck by a third party. It just so happens that Rebel News owns the truck. So here is how Rogers-owned City News in Toronto handled that story today.
Pure Islamophobia. Those are the words being used to describe an overtly racist advertisement that's been spotted on the streets of Toronto. Tina Yazdani is tracking that story now. And Tina, we're learning who was behind that content or behind the truck carrying the content.
Yes, Cynthia, and certainly that ad campaign sparking a ton of outrage. And for the past 24 hours, Toronto police and many members of the community trying to track down exactly who is behind it. Well, Rebel News has now taken responsibility for the van, and they say Toronto police is investigating them. A video of the van displaying Islamophobic messages in downtown Toronto went viral this week, quickly prompting a police investigation and even pushing a local businessman to offer a $25,000 reward for information on the person responsible. That proved unnecessary, as Rebel News has now taken ownership of the van. In a statement on their website, they write, Toronto police are officially investigating Rebel News for running these ads by local community activists on our Rebel News billboard truck. The ads were created by a group called Canadians Opposed to the Occupation of Our Streets and Campuses. The video on the van displays a series of questions. Is this Yemen, Syria, Iraq? Followed by images of Muslims praying, and then another message that says, no, this is Canada. Wake up, Canada. You are under siege. Canada's special representative on combating Islamophobia tells us this goes far beyond free speech.
It's clear from the messaging on this ban that there is an effort to demonize, to make it appear that Muslims are a threat to their communities. And that is the very core of what Islamophobia is, to create irrational fear about our communities. And so this is dangerous. It has to be condemned.
And it has been condemned. Toronto's police chief tweeting, let me be clear, all incidents of hate are serious. Everyone deserves to feel safe in our great city, while political leaders speak out.
We want to build a country where people can be who they are and they're not going to face hate.
But hate crimes are up drastically across Canada, with a 500% increase in Islamophobic and anti-Semitic hate speech online. In Toronto alone, there have been 190 hate crimes reported to police so far this year, nearly half anti-Semitic.
There is a rise of anti-Semitism from coast to coast, and it's now a national crisis.
Similar cube vans have been spotted in Toronto targeting Jewish communities as well, with messages like Zionism equals terrorism. The Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs tells us 91% of
Notice that didn't become a news story until this one did. Isn't that interesting that we haven't seen any news stories about cube vans with their advertising Zionism is terrorism until now, when Ezra decides he's going to do it, or whoever bought the van advertising from Rebel News decided they were going to do it? I find that incredibly fascinating.
Jews support the existence of Israel.
It's a fundamental precept of Judaism and of Jewish identity. That is why when Jews see something like Zionism equals terrorism, they see it rightly as an attack on them.
Now, Toronto police have confirmed their hate crime unit is investigating the van with anti-Muslim messaging, but they have yet to confirm if they're specifically investigating Rebel News, so we'll have to wait and hear on that.
Well, no, we don't have to wait and hear on that because Ezra has put out his own video. And apparently there was a knock on his door at some point today.
The Toronto police are officially investigating Rebel News for running these ads by local community activists on our Rebel News billboard truck. The ads were created by a group called Canadians Opposed to the Occupation of Our Streets and Campuses. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it tells you everything. They're anonymous because they know they'd face retaliation for speaking out. That's how bad things are these days. The ads just show actual footage of what the pro-Hamas gangs have done to Toronto, including committing real crimes ignored by the police and politicians. In the case of this particular ad, the images included pro-Hamas gangs shutting down the streets in downtown Toronto. Here's the official police announcement declaring those ads Islamophobic and suggesting that a hate crime has been committed, a crime. The Toronto police don't think the pro-Hamas street gangs themselves are committing hate crimes. They think the ad we ran on our truck is a hate crime. In Trudeau's Canada, you're allowed to support terrorism. You're not allowed to criticize terrorism. That sounds more like 1984 than 2024. Here, let me give you some more background, and then I'll tell you how you can help us fight back at a special website we've set up called SaveTheTruck.com. But it's really about more than just a truck. It's about cancel culture and the weaponization of hate speech laws and two-tier policing. I've hired a lawyer, and we're obviously going to fight because this is still Canada, not Gaza. We still have free speech here for now. It's actually pretty serious. If convicted under the law for hate speech, I could be jailed for up to 2 years just for running that ad. And don't think they won't try. Our Rebel News reporters have been arrested by Toronto police several times just for asking Hamas supporters questions. The police hate us because we're not silent and obedient, which is what they've told the Jewish community to be. The police chief isn't dumb. He's doing what his political bosses want. Here's Toronto's mayor denouncing the truck. No surprise, she's a pro-Hamas NDP mayor, an extremist who refused to attend key Jewish community events this year. It goes much higher than the mayor, though. Here's a tweet by a pro-Hamas Trudeau member of parliament who wrote, "There needs to be an investigation and there needs to be justice." Can you imagine that same member of parliament hosted a Holocaust denier on Parliament Hill, but she wants us prosecuted for hate speech?
Okay. So ultimately, they are trying to weaponize the justice system against certain organizations and certain individuals for certain things. Let me be clear. How long has the hate speech been going on social media and all across university campuses in every major city in this country? Since last October, right? Death to Jews. And by the way, I say that for information purposes only. I do not say that as my own opinion, just so the AI algorithms on any social media platform I'm broadcasting on right now don't misconstrue my meaning. But nothing gets said about that. They don't remove these kids. I suppose they do every now and again, but they just recongregate. They get back together. They start doing their thing all over again. And then a couple of weeks after that, the police come again, get rid of the tent city, and then they come back. And it's just a cycle, an endless cycle of nonsense and crap. that the public is forced to endure. And a lot of it, by the way, is on our dime. They are using public facilities, taxpayer-funded facilities. Universities across this country, many of them, almost all of them, as a matter of fact, are funded either provincially, federally, or both. That means the yard, all of the real estate that their university is located on belongs to us. It's available to everybody. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that the Trudeau government and all of the Marxist organizations, whether they're NGOs, whether they are, in fact, government agencies, police services, the judiciary, whatever they happen to be, it seems as though they want to use hate speech, but only against a certain type of person. White males, maybe, who can't seem to get a job in any company or any level of anything these days. They're last on the list. We're not hiring white men, man. I don't care how good you are. I don't care what your resume says. I don't care what your education is. You are white, you're a man, you don't get this job. They even write that down in what they're looking for in their job ads. They actually say that qualifications, no white. Discrimination? Absolutely. But does that get called hate speech? Of course it doesn't. You can't be racist against white people, Shadow. Isn't that interesting? So I'm very curious to see how this is going to work out, and I certainly hope that the Toronto police come to their senses and just say, all right, no. Because hate speech, too, it's a very ambiguous expression. Hate speech to one person might be love speech to another. It might be meh, disinteresting to another person. It's so many different things to so many different peoples. You can't say that what they said on that ad truck was hate speech. It did not incite anybody to violence, didn't call names. There was no mis or disinformation. Everything, all of the information in that ad was absolutely bang on. I mean, you feel it. I feel it. I've talked about that on this show before. Walking through certain areas of the city or town that you live in right now, and it's mostly in the major cities, let's be completely honest here. You feel like a foreigner in your own country. It's because of all of the illegal immigrants and the not so illegals anymore, because Trudeau is trying to make them all legal. Come on in. Doors wide open. Come on in. And Canada will not be Canada, the Canada that we know, much longer if this continues. There's going to be a great big march on July the 1st. I talked about it last night. And you can take part in that if there is one happening in your city. I forget exactly what. You guys in the comments, can you tell me exactly what that website is? I had it up last night. I can't remember exactly what it's called, the organization that's putting it on, because there are so many. There are so many different organizations, all with very similar names. Stand Up for Canada, something like that. Anyway, yeah. And so imagine taking part in a march like that. Like, is this something, what I just said, is this something that you would feel comfortable talking about in public or on social media? I'm just looking at the comments. Is it something that you would say, yeah, man, you know what? Canada's got to be Canada. And I'm not against newcomers to our country. I've always maintained that. I think we need immigration because our birth rates are so low and abortion is very legal in this country. So not as many people having children as there used to be. Families are being destroyed, and I think a lot of that has to do with socialization by the elites / leeches in our society. Anyway, we're going to leave that by the side of the road for now. We'll talk about it again next week. I'm just having a discussion with Chris Sky via text right now. Would you like to hear what we're talking about? This is very interesting. This is news to me. Well, not quite, but So Chris says to me, is this Shadow Davis? I'd love to talk about Jeremy McKenzie and Diagolon. Lots of information. Chris Sky. I say, hi, Chris, how about Monday? He says, I'm in Turkey, so let's coordinate around the time difference. Where are you located? I have info that will really blow you away. Oh, no. I say, I'm in the central time zone. We can always record something, too. Just doing the show right now. I'll get back. He says, okay, you're 9 hours behind. We can make it work live. Tell me what time is best for you. 9 hours. It'll be 5 in the morning for him to come on live. We're talking about having Chris on Monday night now for this blockbuster announcement he wants to make regarding Diagolon and Jeremy McKenzie. Oh, my God. Wasn't I just talking about division within the movement? I mean, those are two of the biggest players right there. Okay, guys, let's carry on here. Did anybody come up with the name of that organization? They were on True North yesterday with Harrison Faulkner. Okay, well, Red Dawn 75 on X, watching on X, says, having recently traveled to the UK, I can tell you the same strategies have been deployed there, and we are not far off from being a minority in our own country. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at all of that migration, all those migrants, as they were being called for years, going over to Western Europe and UK. And now look what's going on over there. The crime rates are through the roof, even in countries like Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark. It's unrecognizable in the streets of Stockholm or Oslo or London or Paris or wherever. It does, like, you go to France because you want to go see France. If you want to go to Yemen, do you know what I'm saying here? And again, I am not against immigration. It just needs to be done above board. It needs to be done legally, and governments can't be bending over backwards saying, okay, we're going to make this legal, we're going to make that legal, this, that. And there is no one political leader in this country except for Maxime Bernier willing to speak out against it. And Maxime Bernier does not have a chance of winning even a single seat in any election coming up. So Max has decided he wants to build a very expensive villa in a South Florida island instead. It sounds like he is escaping our country. So he may not be the leader of the People's Party of Canada much longer anyway. And I really wish that Pierre Poilievre would start speaking about it, considering the fact that over 70% of Canadians have said in poll after poll after poll, there's too much immigration. Now, the Marxists, they don't understand the nuanced part of this conversation, right? They'll instantly call you a racist and a bigot and a xenophobe. But we say, no, we're not anti-immigration. We just want less of it. And we want the people who do come here, no matter where they're from, to integrate into our society. Learn one of the two languages. You have to be able to speak fluid English or fluid French before you can get a job in communications or something. Frontline greeting at the driver's license office, let's say, where they can't even speak English to you. Have you seen that happen? I've seen that happen. You've got to know the language. It's the same thing if we go to their country. Like, I'm not going to go there without adhering to their social standards and their laws. It would be the same thing. So why should we open our doors and let them come in with muddy shoes? I don't think we should. Here is a story from TNC.news. Majority of Canadians oppose costly election delay. You know that the Liberals want to move the election date back for some observance. It's not a holiday, it's an observance. As Melissa Outwater pointed out the other night, this will give, I think, 80, well, let's read the story here. Yeah, 80 MPs. Most Canadians oppose the government delaying the next federal election by a week. The delay would mean that 80 MPs would then qualify for a taxpayer-funded pension. A Leger study commissioned by the Canadian Taxpayer Federation, a nonprofit government watchdog, found that 63% of Canadians oppose the government delaying the election by an extra week for Diwali, which is a Hindu observance, not a holiday, an observance. And why would we, for a Hindu observance, delay an election. This is Canada. This is exactly what I was just talking about. It's just a BS excuse from Trudeau anyway. He just wants to make sure these MPs get their pensions. The fixed general election date is set for October 20th, which next year, not this year, which happens to be the first day of the 5 to 6 day celebration of the Hindu Festival of Light. Critics of the motion, like Franco Terrazzano, I've got to get him on the show. He's a very entertaining and knowledgeable character. He's the federal director of the CTF, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, said the delay could cost Canadian taxpayers up to $120 million. Leger asked 1,536 Canadians aged 18 or older in mid-June whether they supported or opposed the delay that would cost taxpayers tens of millions. The survey found that only 6% of Canadians strongly support the move to delay the election to accommodate Diwali celebrations, while nearly half said they strongly oppose the idea. Now, speaking of elections, you've seen the polls. Another one came out just this past weekend that shows the Liberals down by 20 percentage points. 42 Conservative, 22 Liberal, and then 18 for the NDP. The NDP is actually in the ballpark of possibly becoming His Majesty's loyal opposition, which is very interesting. It's possible the Liberals could get wiped right off the map, but then again, the NDP is so closely tied to the Liberals, they could get wiped off the map too. And the Conservatives could, like 343 seats, it's quite possible they could take 240 of those seats, which would be the biggest majority in Canadian history. But why is this happening? In terms of the Liberals' demographics, they were very, very strong with women. Trudeau, hair, socks, feminist. Is it all of the things, all of the scandals that have piled up over the years, or is it just his complete and total incompetence? Or is it because it's 2024? Why women have left Trudeau for the Conservatives. This is a great editorial piece in the Western Standard today by Linda Slobodian. He carved a path of broken promises and destructive policies since 2015, yet Prime Minister Justin Trudeau desperately wants another chance. That he's running again is proof he's delusional enough to believe he deserves to be reelected. Unfortunately for him, a growing number of women voters disagree. These would include enablers who supported him in 3 elections while he systematically devastated Canada and our quality of life. They finally had enough of him and his policies, come to their senses, and want to end this toxic relationship. He's been an unfaithful, faux feminist. Trust is shattered. Life with him has become unbearably hard. So no more chances. Get out. Change the locks. Adios. Fortunately, there's an available guy with a lot of appeal who's ready and willing to step in and take over. He doesn't appear to be the type to take women or any Canadians who trust him for granted. He knows, this is a little bit of pandering to Polyev, obviously. He knows how to listen. It's refreshing. No uppity lecturing, no pointing an accusing finger to stir up anger and division. Just a steady message that offers hope and solutions to problems heavily weighing Canadians down. And it's resonating. This is that Abacus poll I was talking about. A stunning 41% of women would vote for Pierre Poilievre if the federal election was held now. Trudeau managed to eke out 22%, trailed by Jagmeet Singh at 20%. That compares to the February Abacus poll that found 38% of women would vote Conservative, 26 Liberal, and 23 NDP. So the NDP and the Liberals are slipping, not gaining. As Trudeau says, well, people aren't in decision mode yet. When Canadians are faced with that decision finally at the polls, the real ones, they'll come to their senses. That's what he's saying. He actually said that publicly last week. Overall, the Conservatives currently hold a 20-point lead over the Liberals, who have traditionally relied on the faithful female vote for Trudeau to rescue them from being booted out of Parliament. The breakup underway sure has things looking grim for the cabal and its unpopular weak leader, who had a 59% negative rating in the Abacus poll. Have women finally seen through this narcissist's bullshit? Pardon my language. Do they now realize he's totally incompetent and a pathological liar? Did it take making them much poorer to finally see the light, said Monica, a Calgary-based Western Standard reader? Well, not all women are walking toward the light. One professional said she plans to vote for Trudeau because he's nice. She's apparently comfortable, directly unaffected by his disastrous policies. Give him another term and that'll change. But for now, for sheltered her, nice will suffice. Nice hair, socks. A kind of reckless naivete on the part of women casting votes is what got Canada into the hole the Liberals and their reckless spending and globalist leanings dug, that many fear is too deep to climb out of. Why are astute women voters who were initially reluctant gravitating towards Poilievre? The cost of living. Alarms going off every time they go grocery shopping. The state stealing parental control to dig its talons into children to sexualize and manipulate them. Special school programs for their children canceled to pay for interpreters for immigrant children brought in at too rapid a rate that Canada cannot accommodate or afford. An attack on females disguised as empathetic woke by the he-feminist fraudster who supports males being allowed into little girls' change rooms and on sports teams. The insanity of government-supplied tampons in male bathrooms while women who actually need them must pay for their own. Capital gains tax changes, the carbon tax, mortgage rates hitting the roof, no chance of their children owning their own homes, not enough housing, not enough money, not much hope for the future, until Poilievre came along to rekindle hope. Time will tell if he's got the backbone to stand up to the boys in the short pants, unelected bureaucrats who call the shots and order MPs around. See what I tell you guys? It's always the bureaucrats, the deep state, or the globalists who want to control Canada that Trudeau, Freeland, and other Liberals and NDP got so cozy with. In the meantime, Canadians are embracing Poilievre's support of a free market, less tax, no out-of-control government spending, and vision of a country where the state is the servant, not the master. While Trudeau spends with abandon supporting the climate change hoax, Poilievre wants to see an end to poverty like the reliance of an expected 3 million Canadians this year on food banks. Poilievre gains points with the majority pro-choice women, but disappoints pro-lifers by distancing himself from the debate by declaring that he refuses to place any restrictions on abortion in Canada, where babies can be ripped out of the womb up until the time of birth. There's another story I've got coming up about that. When I am Prime Minister, no laws or rules will be passed that restrict women's reproductive choices, period, he said. He wins points with even the most pro-liberal women, including mothers, by saying female sports, female change rooms, female bathrooms should be for females, not for biological males. Trudeau, the professed champion of women, ? Well, instead of declaring women should be protected from men prowling in their private spaces, he wrongly accused Poilievre of picking a fight with the sexual minorities community. Trudeau talks pronouns and perverted ideologies. Poilievre talks reining in inflation and controlling mortgage rates. Trudeau runs away from the crowd, okay, even before the frustrated, unwashed masses took to hollering and cursing at him. Poilievre gets right in the middle of the crowd and looks like he enjoys being there. Increasingly, Canadians are annoyed with Trudeau's arrogant doublespeak and refusal to acknowledge he's responsible for plummeting quality of life. Women are feeling it like never before. The next poll should be interesting. Prediction: never underestimate the unforgiving wrath of women scorned and betrayed by Trudeau's flattering chatter. There's no going back. No mending the broken relationship that turned toxic. Linda Slobodian, great editorial piece in the Western Standard. Now, let's stay with Canadian politics for just a second. We have talked about the political parties, almost all of them, even the Conservative Party of Canada, slowly making that move towards the left. It used to be that the Conservatives were slightly right of center, the Liberals were slightly left of center, and the NDP were the furthest left in the room. Well, the Overton window has switched and moved everything left, and the Conservatives went along with it, at least for a time, under Erin O'Toole. But I believe that under Pierre Poilievre, they've come back to the common sense way of thinking. I believe the Conservative Party in Canada right now is dead in the middle. They are classical liberals in every sense. with a wing of social conservatism thrown in there and some red Tories as well. But it's a big blue tent. Everybody's welcome. The Liberals are way, way left of center, and the NDP are even further so. You know what? I think it's a race. I think it's a race to get to the edge and fall off the left. Not that I'm a flat earther or anything. But I think, one day you feel, the Liberals are like the real Marxists, and then, no, it's the NDP. But I could see this coming. If the NDP and the Liberals ever formed a coalition, I thought to myself years ago, we're in big trouble. And here we are. Here we are. The NDP used to be the working man's party, the party of Ed Schreier, the party of Jack Layton. Those guys talked about unions. They talked about blue-collar workers. They talked about workers' rights mostly. That's where they hung their hat. They won their first government in this country in a provincial election in the late 1960s in Manitoba. Tommy Douglas was the founder of the NDP, then called the CCP, way back in the 1950s. And they used to be the hard hat lunch pail party. But they're not anymore. I don't know what they are anymore. I mean, Jagmeet Singh talks about affordability. He talks about unions. He talks about that. But then he's got people like Laurel Collins. She is an MP from Vancouver Island. And she talks about climate emergencies. And they're not gender neutral either. Watch her.
I want to start off by addressing one of the comments that was made by the witnesses around climate hysterics. Hysteria, it refers to something that is wildly emotional. It comes from the Greek word womb, of the womb. It is used in ancient Greek to refer to things associated with women. And I hope you'll forgive me if I get emotional. Climate emergencies are not gender neutral. The degradation of ecosystems disproportionately impacts women and girls. And
what is she even talking about? I got to be careful I don't get hysterical here. This is today's NDP, my friends. Casting a vote for the NDP is casting a vote for this person right here. All right? It's also casting a vote for people who believe that your 8-year-old son, if he says to you one day, you know what, I want to be a girl today, believes they should, in fact, have the right to become a girl and have their genitals cut off or start taking irreversible hormone blockers. They believe that your daughters should be exposed to men in locker rooms and bathrooms in public spaces. They believe that boys and men should be able to compete as women on sports teams, in schools, in community clubs, wherever. That's what today's NDP believes. They don't give a rat's ass about the working man. They are all about woke ideology. That is it to them. And that, you know what, this video, you can find it on X. If you're on X, just go type in Laurel Collins in the search field. This video will come up and others like it. And if politics ever comes up as a topic of conversation with you and your friends and they say, I vote NDP. I voted NDP for 20 years. Not going to stop now. Play them this video. And ask that person if they're still going to vote NDP. Because that is what the NDP is in 2024. You recognize this guy? This is Albert Bourla. He is the CEO of Pfizer. This is him a year and a half ago talking about COVID as a dress rehearsal for what's yet to come.
I truly think the best days of Pfizer are ahead of us. Because COVID was, for me, like a rehearsal, a prova generale, how you can mobilize an organization and do the impossible possible against a main disease. We are after cancer and many other things in the years to come.
So what do you think it's going to be? Is it going to be the bird flu? Is it going to be disease X? Maybe the bird flu is disease X. Maybe it's going to be a souped up version of monkeypox. I mean, there's all kinds of stories floating around out there. It could be. another version of COVID. Could be anything. But if they say that it's coming, and they've been saying that it's coming, another pandemic is just around the corner. We don't know when, but it's coming. Believe them. And they're going to have a vaccine all ready for us. Will it be safe and effective? You bet. That's what they'll tell us. However, we have some massive news out of the state of Kansas today, where Kansas Attorney General is suing. He is suing Pfizer for misleading people by hiding the risks of harms from their COVID injection. The risks they knew about before this product ever hit the market. Let's listen.
Pfizer marketed its vaccine as safe for pregnant women. However, in February of 2021, Pfizer possessed reports for 458 pregnant women who received Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine during pregnancy. More than half of the pregnant women reported an adverse event, and more than 10% reported a miscarriage, many within days of the vaccination. Pfizer also possessed information from its own October 2020 study on pregnancy in rats, indicating that its COVID-19 vaccine was likely linked to infertility, loss of litters, and stillborn offspring. Number two, safety relating to heart conditions like myocarditis. Pfizer consistently denied any evidence of a connection or safety signal between its COVID-19 vaccine and myocarditis or pericarditis. Indeed, on January 18th, 2023, when asked whether its vaccine caused strokes or myocarditis, Pfizer chairman and CEO Alan Berla stated, quote, "We have not seen a single signal, although we have distributed billions of doses," end quote. A signal that he was referring to as a safety signal, which refers to a negative consequence. However, as Pfizer knew, the United States government, the United States military, foreign governments, and others had found that Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine caused myocarditis and pericarditis. Number three, effectiveness regarding variants. Pfizer also claimed that its COVID-19 vaccine protected against COVID-19 variants, even though data available at the time showed Pfizer's vaccine was effective less than half the time against variants. Finally, transmission. Pfizer urged Americans to get vaccinated in order to protect their loved ones, clearly indicating a claim that Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccination stopped transmission of COVID-19. Pfizer later admitted that it had never even studied transmission of it after its recipients received the vaccine and whether they could say it stopped transmission. After making these misleading statements, Pfizer also engaged in some censorship attempts. Emails reveal that Pfizer officials coordinated with social media platforms to censor any speech critical of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine safety and effectiveness. It should also be noted that Pfizer elected not to join the federal government's vaccine development program known as Operation Warp Speed and declined that development funding. When asked about that, Pfizer's CEO, Albert Bourla, said Pfizer did not participate in the program in order to, quote, liberate, end quote, Pfizer's scientists and to avoid government oversight of its vaccine development. He also said, quote, "They want reports. I don't want to have any of that," end quote. Referring to they, when he said they, he was referring to the federal government. Pfizer's misleading statements contributed to success in marketing its vaccine in Kansas. By February of 2024, Pfizer had delivered over 3.3 million doses of its vaccine in the state of Kansas. This accounted for over 60% of all vaccine doses given in the state of Kansas. This suit is being filed today, and as I mentioned before, it is part of a multi-state effort in which more suits may follow depending on Pfizer's reaction.
That's amazing, because you still have these quacks on social media talking about how that formula was safe and effective and still is, and you should go out and get more and more and more and more. Doctors, scientists, social media influencers all on board, still talking about it. But you've got the Attorney General of a state like Kansas going public. By the way, none of the left-wing corporate media covered that today. Surprise, surprise. But you've got the Attorney General of Kansas coming out and saying all of those things. And the lawsuit moves forward. That lawsuit should have reverberations all across the world. At least all across the United States, in red states, obviously, because the blue states cover it up somehow. It's amazing how the media is able to do that. I think it's because people really still to this day don't want to know. And for some reason, that invisible wall that exists between Canada and the United States, the Canadian media doesn't talk about it. Canadian politicians, they don't talk about it either. Therefore, that formula still must be safe and effective, for goodness sakes. And they're still doing that, ha, 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 you anti-vaxxing fool. They're still doing that thing they were doing 3 years ago. Look up Troy Westwood on X, and you'll see exactly what I mean. I have more coming up, my friends. I have more coming up in the extension on shadowdavis.com in just a couple of minutes for you all access members. I'll see you there in 2 minutes. For those of you who watch on social media, I will see you on Monday night at 8 o'clock Central, obviously with Chris Sky, it looks like, as Chris and I have been setting up that interview during the show tonight. You may have seen me looking down at my phone while video was playing. That's what I'm doing, setting up the interview with Chris Sky and possibly Jeremy McKenzie, which would be a knockdown, drag-out, bare-knuckle match. I don't know yet. We'll see what happens, but it looks like Chris and I, at the very least, will be on Monday night. And Chris says he has some incredibly mind-blowing news to report about Jeremy McKenzie and Diagolon. So we'll see. Hopefully, we see you this weekend at the Stronger Together conference in Beausejour. Kev from Canada Nano Silver tells me they've got a table set up there for all 3 days. That's tomorrow, that is Saturday, that is Sunday. Go to Manitoba Stronger Together, all one word. Manitoba Stronger Together. Kathy from Angels Cafe in Calgary coming out to Manitoba for the event this weekend. Hello, Kathy. How are you doing? It's going to be good to see you. Manitoba Stronger Together, all one word.ca for all of your ticket information. There's different versions of the ticket you can get right now. Get whatever you can afford and come out. It's not just to sit and watch people speak. It's to engage and learn and then take that information back to your community so you can share it with people back home, so you can actually start doing something to fight back instead of being frustrated, sitting on your hands, wondering what you can do. This conference will give you the tools you need to start doing something, to start taking part in this war. And that will make you feel so good inside. And yes, of course, there will be that togetherness factor. There's always that togetherness factor. Whenever I get together with a bunch of you guys in the same room, it's an amazing, overwhelming, joyous sensation. So hopefully I get to meet a lot of you in Beausejour this weekend. You have yourself, if I don't, have yourself a great weekend. I'll catch you Monday night at 8 o'clock Central for another Shadow at Night live stream. And if you are an All Access member, I'll see you on shadowdavis.com in exactly 2 minutes' time. I'll be right back.